When I shoot my shot, it's the whole wild way it's going in.
Cross niggas like Bubba Chuck, I never gave a fuck. Hook shot a hole like Kareem, but I never lead a buck.
I hit that Ginobili with my left hand, I'm like, woo.
Bitch, you wasn't with me shooting in the gym?
James Harden with the range on me, nigga, way back.
Michael Jordan, 1985, bitch, I traveled with a cocaine circus.
And you could live through anything if magic made it.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know, now you do.
What up, my fellow NBA lovers? This is your guy, Marcellus Ease. And man, oh man, you already know it's NBA All-Star time. And of course, we're going to hear about the snubs. Who made it in, who's overrated. And it's about time we go over some of the inner nuances that creates a sticky situation that happens every single year. Now, of course, we all know the All-Star game is a popularity contest as far as the starters, but the reserves do come down to the coaching and just their selection of who they believe should make the All-Star game. And it should come down to who's actually the best players available to play in the game. Now, of course, this season and like every other season, we see a lot of guys who missed the NBA All-Star game who potentially in the same season could make the All-NBA team. And of course, in the guard era of the NBA right now, we got guys like Trae Young, De'Aaron Fox, Devin Booker. These type of guys, these are the guys who got snubbed, even though Devin Booker is in the All-Star game as an injury replacement. But we're always hearing about the game being a positionless game. And I'm wondering when they're going to make the adjustments in the All-Star voting. Now, a lot of the NBA writers have always been saying that the game right now is a positionless game. And I'm wondering why the same thing doesn't apply when it comes down to the All-Star voting. As we see a ton of guards like De'Aaron Fox, Devin Booker, Trae Young not get in this season. Even though Devin Booker came in as an injury replacement. But overall, we're seeing a lot of guards being left out. And the NBA writers and some of the people sprinkled throughout the NBA media who promote the positionless narrative do not apply to the same rules when it comes to the All-Star voting. Now, Gilbert Arenas took a deep dive into the NBA All-Star voting process among the coaches. And he brought up a few different nuances that I thought it would be interesting to do a more deeper dive into. You guys check out this segment, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
There's only two snubs. It's Trae Young and Sabonis are the only two snubs I have.
Is there anybody on the East that made it that you would replace with Trae?
Oh
or
yeah,
Sabonis?
there's a few.
Okay, who would that be?
There's a few people.
Okay.
That
Well, the floor is yours.
for the East.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll start off with teams, right? So usually every year when we go through this All-Star, they always pull two players from the number one team. The problem with this is if the second player is not playing at an All-Star level, you're still picking him. So I'm questioning the very first team, Philly. Is Ben Simmons having a better year than players that were snubbed? At 15, 8, and 7, his numbers are actually down.
But it's a lot better for the Philadelphia 76ers. Ben Simmons' usage is finally coming down. Is making a lot more sense as we see it paying out dividends for the Philadelphia 76ers as Embiid finally is taking over as he should. Embiid is the go-to guy on that team. And Ben Simmons this year making the All-Star doesn't really quite make sense. If they're going to give a second guy like that the All-Star, they might as well give a guy like Chris Middleton the All-Star. And once again, it brings up the fact that certain guys make the All-Star team based off of team success, not due to the fact that they're actually one of the top performing players in the league.
So next up is Randall, averaging 23, 10, and 5. But your team is in 10th place, right? 10th place. And then Orlando,
Now, Gilbert's issue with Randall is that at the time, the Knicks were in 10th place, but they've bumped up. But he mainly has an issue with Randall being around that 10th seed and Sabonis averaging almost somewhere near around the same thing. But currently, before the All-Star break, the Knicks have been bumped up and the Indiana Pacers have been bumped down. So once again, Gilbert Arenas' only issue with Randall making the All-Star game is that Sabonis was putting up similar numbers. But once again, the Pacers, they've jumped down in the standings. So in retrospect, the Randall selection does kind of make a bit more sense.
He's in 12th. Nikolai has 23-11. So how do you justify those two power forwards over Sabonis and his team is actually in 4th place with the same numbers? 21, 11, and 5 versus 23, 10, and 5, 23, 11, and 3.
Well, for starters, they're both in different conferences. I see where he's getting at. But at the end of the day, they're both in different conferences.
You have the same numbers, but one guy has a better team with circumstances of trades. So he's really carrying this team. Because the guy that came in, who was Jersey, young fella that got traded there, who's not playing, Levert, who's not playing. So it's basically, he's carrying his team to 4th place. So how is he actually not in the All-Star? You know, it's not
And
even.
he was All-Star last year.
That's not even a
up.
snub. That's just basically screw you. That's.
Now, I would make the argument that you could say Sabonis is a snub because Zion Williams is the 11th seed in his conference, and he only averages 4 more points than Sabonis does. The rest of his numbers look pretty similar, but yet he's in the All-Star game. That's the only case I would make for Sabonis. But right now, the Indiana Pacers have been bumped down to the 10th seed, and the Knicks have been bumped up. That's why I believe the Sabonis to Zion comparison makes a bit more sense.
Screw you. I mean, there's no way that you pick 2 other forwards over him. He is the top forward when it comes to production and winning.
We'll get to the West, but I'm pretty sure that's what Mike Conley said. It's not just a snub; it's a complete diss.
And then so you have those 2 questions, and then.
And also, I'm gonna go over Sabonis' numbers real quick. Sabonis' average is 21 points, 11 rebounds, 5 assists, and the Pacers are sitting at the 10th seed. And Zion Williams made the All-Star game, averaging 25 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists. So that right there looks a little funny in the light.
You have Trae Young, right? I don't even know how you actually justify not having him in.
I think if you look at the backcourt, who's in there, I mean, it's Kyrie, Brad Beal, Harden.
No. We're talking about reserves and reserve zone.
I'm just giving you some logic here. I'm with you actually on Sabonis. I think actually Vukovic was the guy that jumped out at me. I was like, how the hell did he make it? His numbers are solid, but I would swap out Sabonis for him. Keep Randall. Randall has been doing work.
Okay, hey, I don't care who you keep. I just know one's supposed to be there. And then when you have.
And because they look at him as a center.
Who?
When it comes to filling out the roster. I disagree with that, but.
Who looks at him as a center?
Putting in, they needed a second big.
Well, they don't have, you can't pick centers anymore. They put him as a forward. So don't give us that whole center shit when you took that.
Forward.
Yeah, you took that whole category out. You know, you took the category out, so we don't want to hear that, oh, we need this extra big man. That's not fair to someone who's actually better.
And that's where the point of the positionless game that the media sort of pushed forward as a narrative, that doesn't make sense that they call the game that, but when it comes to All-Star voting, the same thing doesn't apply. That's why guys like Trae Young averaging 26 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists, and guys like De'Aaron Fox are not in the All-Star game. And also Devin Booker and Mike Conley kind of getting snubbed also. Even though they end up making the All-Star game due to injuries that happened to other players.
And then same thing with Trae Young. How do you justify, because if we actually rank, if you want to rank the best players in the Eastern Conference as the reserves, who's ranked 1?
I'd go Harden.
Harden's number 1. Who's number 2 as a reserve? The second best player in the Eastern Conference.
Harden can't make the All-Star game due to the fact that he got traded in between 2 different conferences in 1 year. Normally guys like that don't end up making the All-Star game.
I might want to say Zach LaVine.
Zach LaVine. Who is the third best player in the Eastern
But you're also
Conference?
looking at offense numbers. We got to talk a little defense. Give Simmons some credit for his defense. But
Who is the third best player in the Eastern Conference?
You want to go with Trae Young. I know what you want to say.
Okay.
I mean,
So Trae Young is,
good.
everybody will say Trae Young is the third, out of these reserves, Trae Young is the third best player in the Eastern Conference.
Now, this is where things kind of get funny in the light. Once again, we see certain guys not make the All-Star team due to the fact of their team records. Guys like Trae Young, De'Aaron Fox, they tend not to make the All-Star game because of that. But then again, we see guys like Ben Simmons doing a lot less, but having the success in Philadelphia make the All-Star game. And last year, the same thing applies to Chris Middleton, kind of making the All-Star game off the success of his team.
Agreed.
So just now, so right now it's flawed. It's flawed because they're gonna say, well, his record. Well, New York's record, they have a player. In Orlando, they have a player, and look at his record. So you can't use the record now. You can't use the record if there's 2 players on there who actually have bad records. So you have a flawed system when the third best player is actually not on the team. So those are my 2 snubs, and those are the 3 players that I will be questioning with their numbers. How are these considered all-stars if one is having a down year, but his team gotten better? Your team's gotten better. You added players to your team, which has gotten your team better. You as an individual is not playing at an all-star level.
AKA Ben Simmons. And this rule also could apply to Bradley Beal not making the All-Star team last season, as his team was at the bottom of the standings, but yeah, he was performing at an All-Star level.
What happens when the individual performance outweighs the record? So I'm looking at Bradley Beal, right? He had to make it. His numbers,
but no. See, now there comes the dilemma too. He made it as a starter. The fans picked that. You can't, when the starters are getting picked by the fans, that overweighs everything. That has nothing to do with winning. That's popularity. So he was a popular player this year. So his winning and where his team's at has no bearing on this.
So let's say, and this could have happened, Harden, really popular in Brooklyn, New York, big market. He could have made it as a starter based on popularity and votes. Would Brad be a reserve?
Brad would have been a reserve and probably wouldn't have made this team.
That's what I'm thinking. Because, yeah, you look at the record, terrible.
Yeah, so they were that's what I said. He could have been.
He is balling.
But he could have been snubbed.
Right.
And that's where snubs come from.
Okay. So put a pin in that. All right. And let's look over in the West. So 4 snubs.
4? You got 4?
No, 4. Like we were saying, we're snubs. We went through the roster already. DeRozan. Okay. De'Aaron Fox. Jamal Murray. Ja Morant. Brandon Ingram. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. John Wall.
This is where that positionless basketball comes into play. Why are they not voting in the same way with the positionless basketball? Because we see the West is guard heavy and a lot of guards are being left out.
Okay. Any of those? You got any of those?
No, because there was only one true snub.
And I'm not saying they are snubs for me. I'm saying they're in consideration. You would say they're in consideration for all-star spots. Okay. And then actually, when you do look at the numbers, I don't really think in the West they got it wrong.
In the West, they did get it wrong. Only one player was wrong.
Booker.
Yeah.
Who's actually in.
But you can't say he's in because he got snubbed.
Okay.
It's part of the system. He was snubbed. So what's funny is if AD decides to play, what would they do? If AD came out tomorrow and said, I'm playing in the All-Star, what happens to Booker?
Well, Booker will be out. And also, we got to look at how the hell is Chris Paul in the All-Star game, but yet his numbers kind of rely on Booker's success. That doesn't make any sense. I believe Chris Paul was grandfathered into this All-Star game.
I want to ask that because I think at some point, because if the coaches are picking the reserves, right? They say we can pick this group, we can leave him out because we know there's going to be injury, replacement. So I don't, because to me, the name that jumped out was Paul George, because we know what Paul George is capable of. I don't think he's having that Paul George level season yet. We're only halfway through it. So Booker is having a Booker season.
Once again, that's pretty much the voters choosing who they want to let in the All-Star game. Paul George's team is having a lot of success, but yet it hinders him from making the All-Star game. But guys like Ben Simmons, with his team success, he gets into the All-Star game. That's another funny thing in the light.
Get left out would be the question.
Yes, that is the big question. How did Booker get left off? But the guy who passes the ball to Booker is in.
That's NBA politics 101 right there. Remember, CP3 holds a lot of weight in that Players Association. How does CP3 get into the All-Star game, but not Devin Booker? If anything, it should have been the other way around.
The questions are, how are you? I mean, I know how this is happening.
Yeah, I feel like
you
you're
know,
gonna tell
but
us.
I don't want to tell you now.
Okay.
But so when I look at this, there was one person who got snubbed, who truly got snubbed, who deserved it. His team is in 4th spot. He's averaging 25, 6, and 4. Right?
Right.
From there, I don't want people to think I'm picking on this guy. But how does Zion Williams get in? And his team is 11th. And he's averaging 25, 6, and 3.
That's because of NBA politics. As we've seen it play out in the bubble last season, the Memphis Grizzlies and Ja Morant should have been in the playoffs. But yet, the easier part of their scheduling should have came up. But yet, their scheduling was switched up in order to give Zion a chance to get into the playoffs, thus possibly boosting the ratings. The league has a lot riding on this Zion Williamson situation, especially when it comes to the television ratings.
I mean, the numbers are not here for you to overshadow someone in the 4th spot. If you took Zion's number and put him in the East, how do you, like, those big men, they're averaging double doubles. So 25 and 6 and your team is 11th. How does that put you over a guy who's averaging 25, 3, and 4 and sitting in 4th spot?
Once again, league politics. And also keep in mind that the NBA All-Star Game is a television product. And especially right now, due to the pandemic and the TV partners possibly losing a lot of money last season, the NBA is putting on this show in Atlanta. And when I say show, I'm referring to the All-Star Game. They're doing it in Atlanta, aka that is the headquarters of TNT, aka Turner Sports, one of the NBA's biggest partners.
You say it would be the next front court player that should have got in after Zion. If you're gonna put him at the bottom, what's the cutoff?
What do you mean the cutoff?
After him, who's coming next?
After him?
Yep. I'll tell you who. His teammate,
Brandon Ingram. Okay, see, that's part of the problem.
Mm-hmm.
You're part of the problem.
Mm-hmm. I guess so.
You're part of the problem because you're trying to categorize who go. It's player. It's not, this is not the starters. It's not 2 guards, 2 forwards, and whatever. It's the best reserves. So if the best reserves is all big men, God damn it, it's all big men. If it's all guards, it's all guards.
Once again, Gilbert is bringing up that positionless basketball. Once again, how the media always says the game is positionless, but yet this all-star voting does not reflect it at all.
That's if you look at all these guys that we have in the snub category, they're all guards because guards put up the numbers. They're scoring more. You're looking at offense, except for Rudy Gobert and maybe Ben Simmons, there's not a lot of attention to defense. So if we look at just offensive numbers.
And you say Rudy Gobert was he averaging 14 and 12? Mm-hmm. I mean, are those really
Sexy offensive numbers? No.
No, I mean, is it really all-star numbers? Or I'm pretty sure his team is number one. You know, so number one, we're just gonna grab number two. That's how Middleton was making it with
a defensive specialist.
But that's how Middleton was making it with his mediocre numbers. You know, there was one year where I think it was last year. All his numbers was bad. I mean, from the 3-point percentage to his assists, rebound, everything was down.
They weren't bad. Yeah, they went down.
Everything went down, and you actually make the All-Star.
Once again, that's guys making it off of team success. And it doesn't make sense how that benefits some guys but hurts other guys, aka Paul George. He can't get in because of his team success, but Gobert and, like Gilbert is mentioning last season, Middleton making the All-Star game based off of his team success.
But you're not playing like how are you making an All-Star if you're not actually playing like an All-Star? You know, you can't hold everybody to their record. A record doesn't make an actual All-Star. The play does. You know, it's the best players that makes an All-Star.
So, okay, you're not picking on him, but what do you want to say about Zion?
He shouldn't have been in front of Devin Booker.
Okay.
I mean, the number, like if I said your team is in, if you take away the names and I said, hey, this guy's in 4th spot, his team is 4th, he's averaging 25, 3, and 4. And then you have this guy who's in the 11th spot, he's averaging 25, 6, and 3. Who do you take? If you take away the name, 100% of everyone is gonna take the guy who's in the 4th spot.
Would you look at the record too, though?
AKA Gilbert Arenas is saying the politics. It's the politics of the league. They need Zion to be in that game because they need the ratings to be high to help out Turner Sports. Once again, the NBA is hooking up one of their biggest TV partners by having this game in Atlanta. And it's not a mistake they're doing it in Atlanta because that TNT crew does not have to fly out any people, cameramen, all type of crew to film this game. It's happening live and it's happening right in their hometown. So they don't have to pay hotel fees or anything.
That's the 4th spot.
Okay. No,
but that's what I'm saying.
I'm making your point.
But that's the 4th spot. So you're gonna take that because the numbers of the guy who's in 11th doesn't actually dominate. Like if Zion was averaging 32, then it's like, okay, I get it. You know, I get that. You know, but you know the fact that he's averaging 1.5 points over a guy whose team is actually a playoff team, it doesn't make sense. It's just that's what I said. It's a flawed system because it's inaccurate. It's tricky.
It's tricky.
It's not even tricky.
I think this too for Booker's situation. Phoenix in 4th. Chris Paul is having a bounce back year, whatever you want to call it, and he's been great. Give him all that respect. He deserves to make All-Star. We agree on that. It's the fact that you have the presence of Chris Paul taking some attention and some votes potentially away from Booker.
Votes? What do you mean votes? Coaches' votes?
AKA Gilbert Arenas knows the fans are not voting for Chris Paul over Devin Booker. It's politics. The coaches are going to vote for CP3 because once again, CP3 holds a lot of weight behind the scenes as he's one of the figureheads of the Players Association. So he's almost like a middleman between the front office people in the league and the players.
It depends. It depends it depends.
On what?
Here we go.
Gilbert's not trying to say shit. He knows what's up, but he's trying to be political about this. He's going about it in a very subtle way. But definitely the fans are not voting for CP3 over Devin Booker, especially right now. Chris Paul does not have that type of popularity right now in the league. As far as the younger fan base, they're looking at Devin Booker. He sort of has that Stephen Curry type game. And CP3 is just the old combo guard that's just barely holding on. Even though he's doing his thing still, he's sort of a relic from the past in a sort of way.
If we go in the West and say, who is the best player in reserves? Of course, Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis over. So Anthony Davis is going to be second.
Sure.
So Dame is number one.
Yes, Dame is number one.
Okay.
And also he's playing an available Anthony.
We're just talking about just period. Just when before.
In general, I'll still take Dame.
Okay, so Dame is the best player
in the reserve.
At the reserve. Anthony Davis. Who's actually number 3?
Do we still get to count Devin Booker? I mean, yeah.
Okay, so that's where I had him. That's where I had him. I said, as of right now, he is the when it comes to reserves, he is the third best player. Third, you can argue fourth, behind PG if you want to, but you can say he's you can say Booker is probably the third best player.
And he definitely is, but once again, the politics of the league, Booker is just a younger guy that's on the come up, and I'm not sure if the people behind the scenes are going to be willing to give him that type of credibility.
Zion is pushing 4 or 5 also.
You just give him some respect there.
No, yeah, but I'm saying but when you look at the list, when you just say players, Zion is on his reserve. He's probably the 4th or 5th best player here.
That's the nicest thing I ever heard you say about Zion.
What do you mean?
He is possibly the 4th or 3rd best player on that reserve roster, but the issue is him coming into that roster. Was his performance this season that impactful for him to even be on that all-star roster? That's the issue.
Just the first time you gave him some credit. So wait, before you get to your point, real quick, what were you saying about Chris Paul and Devin Booker?
It's the old Magic Johnson and it reminds me of the Magic Johnson and Kareem theory, right?
And Kareem does not get enough respect. Kareem is a legend. Make no mistake about it. He's not my era, but just going back, Kareem is a legend in the game. He gets no respect, especially from the media members when they're mentioning the all-time NBA players.
People like to name the best Lakers. Somehow, Magic always goes in front of Kareem. And it's like, wait, how? Technically, how? If this is actually the best player on the team who's carrying the team, how is the point guard in front of this guy? Magic didn't win without him. I mean, Kareem won 1, but it's still, how is one ranked, 1 or 2, and the other one's like 5 or 6? It's like, it just doesn't make sense, especially if he was the main, focus on offense.
And I seen an interview where Kobe Bryant gave Kareem his props. Kobe understood what type of impact Kareem really had on the court.
Same thing with the Chris Paul. If Booker is the main focus on offense, if he's the go-to guy to score, how can, Chris go in before him? And it's in the theory. How would he be the one that's out in the point guard's end if the point guard is relying on this scoring? That's just.
So I think that leads me to lead you to make your point about how this whole system is.
Oh, you ready for the whole system?
Yeah.
Okay.
See, all that setup, all that was to get you to what you really want to dive into today.
Okay, so the reason that there's this big thing around snubs and they never get it right. So if you look at how the starters are picked, you have 2 guards and 3 front court players. That's how they do it. Well, the coaches don't actually vote like that. The coaches are told to vote, give us your top 7, right? So give us your top 7. So therefore, you're gonna write your 7, how they bust your ass, basically, is how you really do it. So most likely, when they got to voting, those coaches, you're gonna go Anthony Davis, Dame, Booker, Zion, you're gonna go Zion, PG, you're gonna Donovan Mitchell, like that. That's gonna be your group. That's gonna be your group. So now this is the problem with how the coaches are voting versus when it gets out of the coach's hand, then what's done. See, so we're looking at like, how did the coaches get it wrong? Well, technically the coaches didn't get it wrong. The coaches took their 7. So what ends up happening is now someone else says, all right, we're gonna take 3 guards and 4 front court people.
And I believe the league is also taking into position some of the high-profile players within that list. So if guys can draw some ratings into that All-Star game, which is already viewed as a game in which the players don't care about, they're gonna actually pick those players above other guys.
Now you have a dilemma. Because if you have, 15 coaches, right? You have 15 coaches. Let's say Dame got 15. Let's say Chris Paul, let's say Chris Paul got 15. Let's say Donovan Mitchell got 13. Let's say Booker got 14. You got someone else sitting with 8 votes, someone sitting with 3 votes, someone sitting with 2 votes.
Okay.
What they do is they say, all right, our 3 highest scoring votes and guards we're taking. So we're gonna take Donovan Mitchell, we're gonna take these 3. Boop. Then you're like, well, hold on. This team is number 1. We need a player from there. All right, we're gonna take this guy out, put this guy in. So Donovan Mitchell could have had less votes, but because it's team number 1, gives him priority. Push him in, right? Now you have someone like Booker, who, if you have 15 coaches, 15 coaches probably voted for him. So you have a guy who got voted by every coach. But hold on, the guard position is already taken out. Now let's go to the forwards. Well, we can't use number 15 anymore. He's out. Let's go to the forward position. Who got the most votes as forwards? Front court players. So now you're sitting, a guy who's out, who got voted by every coach, is out of the All-Star, and now you're going to a guy who possibly got 3 votes. But because there's no competition in that power forward position, he gets in. And that's what ends up happening.
And that's where the major disconnect happens, because if the league is going positionless, then they might have to make major adjustments to make their All-Star voting reflect that. So a lot more guys can end up making it in, especially at the guard position in that Western Conference. Guys like De'Aaron Fox, Trae Young in the Eastern Conference. They can just pick the best players regardless of position. That's if people within the league believe that. The people in the media believe that, but the league is not voting their all-star votes in that way. So they may not believe that the game is positionless.
So in a sense, the coaches is not looking at what place anyone's in. Someone else is doing that. Mm-hmm. And that's where the algorithm is.
Okay,
because...
so wait, hold up. Let's stop the music right there. We're in the matrix now.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so what you're saying is there's the fan vote for starters, the coaches pick the reserves, but there's another layer to it.
There's another layer.
Rungs down the ladder. That is gonna change the whole.
Yeah,
you're calling it a reserve algorithm.
Yeah. The reserve algorithm, and that reserve algorithm is basically that. It's I get this list, and I need 3 guards and 3 forwards. Now with those 3 guards and 3 forwards, because there's 7 players, I'm gonna take the top 3 guards. But now if these are the top 3 guards and votes, okay, this guy is 4th, but his team is number 1. I gotta reward the winning. So I gotta reward the winning, and then one of these guys who have top votes gotta get pushed out. And the same thing with this guy's number 1, he has decent numbers, he gets in. That's why if you look at the top 2 teams, they got 2 players in. Those 2 players that's in, they're not necessarily dominating.
AKA Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons should not be in this All-Star game.
One of them, one of the players are on both teams. The second one is not really, you're not really dominating it.
AKA Rudy Gobert.
Really doing what All-Star's doing. You're just on the team because your team is number 1. So they're rewarding you. So not the coaches, someone else is doing the rewarding here. So that's how you can have.
But wait. Doesn't that make sense? You reward a good player on the best team, than what you said before about the guys that are on teams that are in 10th or 11th place.
Up to a certain point, but the player would have to be performing at an all-star level. Rudy Gobert is not performing at an all-star level. And Ben Simmons this season, he's definitely not performing at all-star level, which is actually helping his team win.
True, but your numbers still have to make sense. Like your game has to make sense. We're talking about all-stars. That means you're playing like an all-star. You're not hiding behind team success. That's not an all-star. An all-star is doing what all-stars do. It's the best 24 players playing. Can you look at any of these lists and say, these are the best 24 players?
Hell no. And of course, we could also say Draymond Green should be part of that list of players who got into all-star games based off of team success. Definitely Draymond Green in the past few years.
No.
Which is why there were cases in history. If you look at like 92 Bull, B.J. Armstrong made it, and probably Ron Strickland deserved it.
Yeah, but that's what. And think B.J. Armstrong makes the All-Star.
Might have been 92.
And then Ron Strickland is all second NBA team. So he's not good enough to make the top 20. Was it 24?
Mm-hmm.
Not make the top 24, but he's the third best guard in top 15 in the. You see where that's because this is flawed.
And definitely it is flawed. I mean, how guys miss the All-Star game but make all NBA teams. Once again, this whole structure and just process is overall inconsistent. And it's raising a lot of red flags and just eyebrows overall when we tend to see the finalized list.
Because this is flawed. And it just needs to be changed.
Okay.
You can't keep in this theory.
So we're here now.
Mm-hmm.
We're here now. How do we fix it?
Personally, I would put the spotlight on the coaches. So what ends up happening is it should be electronic.
Make their votes public.
Make their votes public. So now when they push that button, boom, you can clearly see who every coach's vote. That's why you've never seen the coaches list.
Well, that won't really put the onus on the coaches. That'll put the onus on the league. See, the league is making a second layer of adjustments to that list. So the league's positioning on certain players will end up being exposed. Because as we've seen from Gilbert's examples of how certain guys might get voted on a lot of coaches' lists, but because their team isn't at a certain position in the standings, they get tossed out. So we'll end up seeing that exact scenario play out right in front of everyone's eyes. So the onus will end up falling upon the league and their decision making on that finalized list.
Because everyone will have questions. How is this guy with the third most coaches votes, but it's not in this All-Star game? So now if you make the coaches votes public, whoever does the altering can't alter anymore. You can't alter. So if Rudy Gobert only got 3 votes, you can't just, because his team is number 1, you just can't slide him in there because everyone's looking. He got 3 votes. No one voted for him. Because at the end of the day, it's the best. Your All-Stars the best players.
It should be, and I get what you're saying. I like where you're going, and maybe someday we'll get there. Maybe. I think what they did last year with Team LeBron versus Team Giannis, and you pick your own out of the pool of players, what did that come down to? We just want to see the best players play together.
Yeah.
We didn't really care about positions. Yeah. Embiid makes it because he's very good, not just because he's the big that needs to make it. Guys get in there. The snubs are going to happen. That is the thing that needs to be fixed.
But it's happening because they're trying to categorize and limit it. You're trying to say, all right, on the reserves, we're going to take 3 and 4. Now, what if in the reserve pool, the guards, the top 5 players are all guards? 2 of those guards get snubbed.
So why not just let
So two of those guards would get snubbed by mediocre players.
Right, and I think if you look at the guys that we're all putting in these snub pools, it's a lot of guards. Because why? The game is dominated by guards.
Well, the game is dominated by guards, but I'm wondering, due to the fact that in this era, there's way more possessions, the game is basically spud up, and the rules kind of favor the guards. I'm wondering if they should sort of increase the standards of what makes a good guard. Example, a guy averaging maybe 24 points per game is not as special in this era as it once was, let's say, in the early 2000s or mid 2000s. Maybe a guy averaging higher than 26 points per game, it means something a lot more. Because in this era, man, once again, the guard play, the rules basically benefit them. And a guy putting up 23 points per game, 24 points per game, it almost equates to a guy averaging 18, 19 points per game in the early or mid 2000s. I would say that. So we may have to increase our standards of what averages actually mean something, because the game is sped up, but yet our notion of what a good player is as far as looking at his averages has remained the same. I mean, shit, even if we see guys average 20 points per game, we think that, oh wow, he's a good player. But really, that 20 points per game could really mean 18 to 17 points per game in this era, especially when the final scores of a lot of these games are 140 to 130. You got 8 NBA teams this season alone. Them shooting wise is breaking records. The league has never seen this type of offensive production at this level of efficiency ever. So offensively, the league is having historic years for several teams.
But we're in an era of a lot of guard talent right now.
But that's the problem. You're trying to position, like you have everyone run around talking about it's positionless basketball, and then you're snubbing guys in positions. You're positioning them when you need to snub them, because you're like, oh, we need 3 guards and 3 form players. Well, I just thought we were all basketball players at this point. You know, but now you're purposely picking people because, well, we don't have no big. Well, I thought this was positionless. I can be a big.
And that kind of happens with the start. I mean, you look in the West, you have Luka, you have Steph, and you have LeBron. Basically all playmakers, point guards, whatever you want to call them.
You got 3 big
guards. But not
guards.
exactly the definition of what their position is. They're their own position.
Yeah, well, but even with All-Stars, you as an NBA, you have to, because it's not positionless still, you have to manage who's who. Remember, LeBron was point guard last year. What was he this year on that voting? Forward. Yeah. Because he will take out who? Luka or Curry. Where are their teams?
And then where's Steph?
That's what I'm saying. Where is Golden State? Golden State is 8, Dallas is 9. So that means Luka or Steph possibly could have got snubbed. More Luka.
Well, once again, I believe the league sort of kind of votes guys in because of positions to protect the quality of that all-star game. Because they don't want one guy coming in 7 foot tall, and meanwhile everyone is under 6'8", and the one big on the court is just dominating the game, and the game becomes lopsided. So just keep in mind, the NBA All-Star Game is a television product, and there are checks and balances to make sure that the game at least remains somewhat competitive, because the overall narrative of the All-Star Game is that players don't care and the game is really uncompetitive.
Steph this year, but that's what I'm saying. So you have to manage, but that's why AD don't make it, because now AD has to run up against LeBron and Kawhi now, when last year he didn't.
And that's the rule of basketball. The talent figures it out. Look at Brooklyn, right? Kyrie's a point guard. They get Harden. Now Harden's a point guard. They'll figure that out.
You would think that just say that, like, I don't know why it's like you took out the center because you were mad with Zaza Pachulia almost made the All-Star game. Yeah, because of the votes, because he has no competition. So you get rid of that to make it a third forward. Then won't you just say the top 5 most popular votes then? I mean,
and we start with 5 guards.
If our top 5 is all guards, our top 5 is all guards. Like, how are you how are you justifying that, okay, this guy has 5 million, and then the third guard has 4 million, and he's out, but the forward's got 1 million, 1 million, 1 million, 1 million.
Once again, it comes into the protection of that all-star game, because once again, once you start getting down low, it's not necessarily positionless basketball anymore. It's positionless from the point guard through the small forward position. But once the bigs start getting involved, you can't really be that flexible as far as making a guy that's 6'2" post up. It's just not really gonna work.
It doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? It's like you got a guy with 4 million. He has to now try to fight as a reserve because the two guys in front of him in his position got 5 million. But the other 5 players that's going in front of him are under him in popularity. You know, so it's still, that's what I'm saying. It's not a, it's still not quite how it's supposed to be.
But let's say this, an all-star game is exhibition. It's a popularity contest. So let's just make it fun and make it what people want to see, which it was probably too much of that the year, was it like 3 years ago when Steph laid down on the floor?
Yeah, I mean,
and that's what the league is afraid of. They're afraid of the fans realizing that the players don't really take this game serious, which is the overall narrative. But once you start seeing it for yourself with your own 2 eyes, it changes the perspective. And guys are not going to tune into the games, and their TV partners are not going to be happy.
But that's what I'm saying. It's still not pulling the best. It's like the starters.
We want the best players.
Look, when the fan voting happens, it's not necessarily some years it's not the best 5. It's the most popular 5. So you know, if you're just a popular figure and you don't make it that year, I mean, you're not playing. You know, you're not playing at the par.
Yao Ming was making it for years and not even playing.
Yeah, but you know, but his popularity pushed him there.
Right.
You know, that's what happens. You know, but when it comes to reserve, you have to reward the best players at that point. You can't keep trying to trick the system and say, all right, we're gonna pick this guy because you know he's winning and he's the second best player on the team and their team number 1, so they get granted it's like you're granting the first place team 2 guys. Like you can't do that.
Yeah, and then they leave other guys hanging that are top tier teams like the Clippers and Paul George.
What do you believe in when it comes to rewarding longevity, like a guy like Mike Conley? Is there a point where you're like, you know what, damn it, that guy isn't.
You know, Mike is my guy. If you're playing like an all-star, you deserve to be an all-star.
Now, this is another gray area with that Mike Conley situation. They mention a guy that has longevity. Now, they do make honorary all-stars because we've seen that play out with Dwayne Wade and Dirk Nowitzki. They weren't necessarily performing at an all-star level, but they still made the all-star game. See, this is another gray area. There's too many blurred lines in this all-star voting.
We're not gonna
that he was playing like an all-star and
but what I'm saying is you can't reward. Like if I'm him, what is he averaging right now?
I mean, Conley, yeah, this year 16, 5 assists, 3 boards. Decent for him, you're right. Not probably doesn't deserve to be it this year, but you look at his whole career, and he's never made an all-star.
I mean, he's never made an all-star because what is he sitting behind? You know, you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, Memphis years and
but you got to remember,
the West was loaded with.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's loaded. It's loaded, but still, some of those years he could have been a high vote, but you're running against the algorithm.
Yeah, but those years you had Steph, you had Westbrook, you had Harden, you had Chris Paul in LA, you had Kobe in those days, you know?
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Your algorithm, those years was Tony Parker and him. Tony Parker, like that's what I'm saying. You're sitting behind, but you're also sitting behind the algorithm. And that's why this guy gets snubbed this year, this guy doesn't get snubbed. Like that's where the consistency is. So what's funny is there could possibly be a player, Trae Young or Booker can be all NBA and they didn't make the All-Star. That can possibly happen this year. And how do they and then, because it happened to me. It happened to Ross Strickland. It's like, my argument would be, how do you justify this? How do you justify keeping me off top 24, but you give me top 10?
Well, part of that.
Once again, that's another gray area. It happens all the time, but there's too many blurred lines within this All-Star voting.
Problem of looking at, you know, their longevity or career is also it's halfway through the season. So you're like, well, he's good right now.
No. It's majority. Usually after All-Star break, there's about 32 games left. So it's more than half.
This year's a little different.
Yeah, I'm just saying in normal, it's more than half.
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying, what happened that doesn't make me top 24, but makes me top 15? And if I'm second team, top 10. Not top 24, top 10.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, guys' Wikipedia pages are gonna be looking funny when you see that they didn't make the All-Star game, but yet they're all NBA in that same season.
And I had to look, trust me, I had to find out what the hell happened, because it happened to me my second All-Star. Averaging 29, so like 29, 5, and 4, and our team is 4th. And this is the year everyone was pushing for Detroit. Everybody was pushing, you know, they were riding that Detroit train where all 5 starters should make it. Well, all 5 starters ain't all-stars. You know what I mean? You got 2 all-stars.
5 is a lot on that team.
But you had 2. You had 2. With a possible 3 if the rest of the field didn't play well, if the rest of the field didn't look good.
Most of that comes from the media narrative. It's always them pushing that narrative. Hey, they're a top-seeded team. They should have more guys in the All-Star team.
And the 2 at that time, playing like all-stars, were Rip and Chauncey.
And then Big Ben, Defensive Player of the Year, he made it that.
He made it that year, but I mean, what was you averaging?
He made it that year because of his popularity and his sort of persona that he put on the court. He had the afro, he had the personality. Once again, the NBA All-Star Game is a television product. You got to sell the characters.
Was you 4 and 11? Come on, what is this? I don't give a shit if y'all undefeated. This shouldn't make you All-Star. 4 and 11, someone's averaging 30 and 11. Come on, you can't hide behind a win with this, but that's what happened. And so I'm looking at, I'm 4th, and then Paul Pierce, his team is out of the playoffs. They're like 12 or 13, he's in. Bosch team is last place, he's in. So I'm like, well, it can't be production. I'm 4th in scoring in the NBA right now. Can't be that. Can't be winning. I'm 4th in the NBA. So what is happening here? What is?
It's name and recognition. Come on, Gilbert, you know this. It's name and recognition. Who can get the ratings up?
What does that need to?
What was it?
It was the algorithm. Mm-hmm. The 3 guards. There's the 3 guards. You can take the 3 guards and then.
Oh, it's the algorithm, all right. It's the algorithm and name recognition. At the end of the day, someone signs off on that last few names that make those rosters. And once again, the NBA All-Star Game is a television product. And every season, they need that product to look different and be marketable.
Hey, that boogeyman's always been there.
Yeah, that 3. but that's what ends up happening. It has nothing to do, like, it's some years they try to reward winning, some years they don't. But it's like, just make it public. Make the fucking votes public, so we can see actually how you guys are voting. So we can all sit here and do this. Okay, so yeah, I knew.
They'll never do that. Once again, they'll put the onus on the league to actually vote on players based off of their production and not popularity. Once again, the league is trying to craft a product in the All-Star Game that is different every year and is marketable. And they're not going to make it that transparent.
I knew he was going to pick those guys. And you get to watch it. That should be just like the lottery. The coaches pick. So now we can see there ain't going to be no snubbing. There ain't going to be no what's the naming. And you get to really see, so you can stop having these talented players sitting, and you got a guy who's sitting on the sideline averaging 27, 4, and 9, you know, carrying his team, and then a guy in front of him is averaging 21, 9.
We need receipts.
And he's like, that doesn't. Like, you're one game in front of me, bro. You're one game in front of me, I'm averaging 4 points more than you.
That doesn't add up. We need receipts.
Yeah. We need to, you just need to make the coaches
Accountable.
No, we just want to see their votes now.
Accountable.
We want to see it's not accountable. We know how they're voting, but we want everyone to see it. So when y'all try some tricky shit in the back, we seen who the coaches voted for.
And I'm pretty sure Devin Booker feels that way about Damian Lillard being voted over him into this All-Star game. The Phoenix Suns are sitting in second place, and Dame is sitting in fifth place in the Western Conference. But yet Devin Booker is sitting on the sidelines, and CP3 making that All-Star game. I mean, that shit is a travesty.
Yeah, that's who we want. Those are the top 7 right there. You're not gonna pull him because there's no big man, and you're gonna pull him and he got 1 vote.
All right.
I know damn well. Come on, if we all right here voted right now, we had to pick top 7. Top 7, all of us. If we all picked top 7, we wouldn't come up with this list.
No, when you actually look at the the names, you look at the numbers. If you actually could put in your ballot,
you would not come up with this list
against that, right?
You know, just even like what's so funny is, even though I picked on Zion, he would still be on this team, in a sense, because you're gonna pick the most dominant 7. He is one of them. So it's not like I'm saying he shouldn't be in there. Booker should be in there. I'm saying Booker should be in there, period.
Period. No question.
And CP3 should be out of there, period. No question.
But if I had to take somebody off, if we're going by record now, then I have to go after Zion.
I think that's your thing. You have first go after Zion. And
then... No. I go after Zion because his team is 11th. So
I'm surprised Gilbert right there didn't say go after CP3. But once again, maybe he's thinking of the record, but CP3 should not be in that All-Star game at all, especially over Booker, because his whole production relies on Booker's success.
Then his team is 11th, and he's only a point. He's not even a point in front of him. He's just two rebounds in front of him. You know, but if I'm gonna pull someone off, I'm gonna say, all right, 14-3, Rudy. Chris Paul, 16-4-8. So those would be my 2 guys that I might be pulling. I'll probably pull in Rudy Gobert, or if if we're gonna go best players.
It is what it is. The All-Star selection, once again, is to promote an All-Star game that is a television product, and it has to be different every single season. It's sort of like the MVP voting. They sort of use that award to promote the next upcoming player as a star, so they could put that player on the national TV primetime game slots. It is what it is. It's great to get an internal perspective from a former All-Star player. And that's one of the great things about today's era, is that due to the technology, we can hear from the players directly and get some of the internal insight and nuances that are going on. Hopefully this sheds some light on the circumstances of the All-Star snubs happening every season. Hopefully you get a better, clear picture of what's going on. But there's a lot of blurred lines at the end of the day. It is what it is. Until next time, you guys stay safe. Peace.